Welcome to the 3X Your Pipeline webcast. I'm super excited that you're here today because we're going to show you 3 digital marketing hacks that are going to help you generate more leads and more sales this year. My guess is if you're watching today, you're probably here because you've tried digital marketing on your own and had limited success, or you didn't get the results that you were hoping for. And so if that's you, I'm really glad that you're here, because what we're going to do today is really pull back the curtain and show you how to tie all this stuff together so that you can more predictably and more reliably grow your pipeline in 2021. Sound good? Awesome. Well, hey, before we get too far into it, we do have a couple of housekeeping items I want to share with you. Number one, you probably saw this in the comments. Every time we do one of these, people want a copy of the slides, and we want to make those available to you. So if you haven't already, just grab your phone and text the number 474747 and the keyword 3X Pipeline without any spaces, 3X Pipeline, and that'll send you a link so that you can follow along on your phone or download them or whatever you want to do as we go through the material today. So that's housekeeping item number one. Number two is we're going to answer your questions throughout the session today. We're going to do that 2 different ways. Number one, if you recall, everybody filled out a survey, or many of you filled out a survey as you were registering for today's event. We asked you we had an open-ended question spot in there for you to ask us questions. And so we've tried to answer those questions for you throughout the presentation today. And then I've got some of them kind of condensed at the very end that we'll cover. But also, as we go through the material today, we encourage you to chat in your questions. And Lauren Glover, who is our senior campaign manager, she's manning the chat today, and she'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So I just highly encourage you, ask those questions to Lauren. She'll get them answered for you. If by the end of the presentation today, either I haven't answered the questions for you in the material, or you didn't feel like you got all the answers you were looking for in chat, let us know, and we'll be sure to get those answers, the questions answered for you after the event. And so let's go ahead and jump on into this. And the reason why we feel like this is such an important topic to cover is, in talking with marketing leaders over the last year, we know it's gotten really hard. Marketing has really become challenging. And the reason for that is there's, in some regards, there's limited options, right? Some of the things we used to do in marketing in the past are not available to us anymore. But from a digital marketing perspective, what I'm hearing marketing leaders tell me is, man, there's just so many choices. They don't know whether they should be doing pay-per-click or LinkedIn ads or what they should be doing in the different platforms. And so we felt like this would be a really good time to help cover some of those things. Another issue is just lack of clarity. Go look at some of the websites that are out there today, especially B2B websites, the world that we all live in. And it just seems like we're confusing our customer. We're not doing a really good job of clearly communicating how we can solve problems for our customer. And so it's really important that we do that if we're going to be successful this year. The next bullet is, there's a lot of noise out there, right? I mean, the whole world is going digital now. That means all of our competitors are going digital now. And how are we going to stand out in a noisy crowd? And then the last one, and I saw this a lot in the survey responses, just not enough time, right? I mean, you guys are really, really busy. And so how are you going to learn something new? How are you going to tackle digital marketing when your other traditional avenues have kind of dried up? And those are big challenges. And so we're going to try to address those challenges for you today. But, the results that I think are coming from that are just bad marketing, right? I think last year we saw a lot of bad marketing happen because companies were just trying to figure out how to market your business. Also, a lot of wasted money. Whenever you try something new and you throw some money at it, there's always that opportunity that it's not going to hit the mark, and you're going to end up wasting those precious marketing budget dollars. And then finally, just poor results. But, here's the good news as it relates to that. And really, I want us to focus on good news today. That is that our buyers are still out there, right? They have problems that they cannot solve on their own. That's why we're all in business today. And they're going to digital more than ever before, right? Because they're having to go online to get the answers that they were looking for that maybe they didn't have to go online in the past. And so while it's been a challenging 12 months or so, the good news is there's still buyers out there, and there's still opportunities for us to, tie this digital marketing stuff together and actually get some good value from it. And I just wanted to encourage you with a really quick case study. So this is one of our clients where, they were doing a good job in traditional marketing, and they came to us and they were really trying to help, get help on how do we do this digital thing and how do we do it better than we've done before. And so we walked them through many of the things we're going to walk you through today. And in just 1 year, we were able to generate over 200% growth in their pipeline. And so the things we're talking about today, I absolutely do believe are going to help you, 3x your pipeline if you'll follow the things that we're going to walk through today. So we're on a mission at B2B Digital. So you may be wondering, why are you even doing this webcast? And, if you've been following us along, we try to do one of these about once a quarter. And we really are on a mission to try to make digital marketing easier. It just shouldn't be as hard as it is, quite frankly. And so what we try to do is work with companies and really help them execute digital marketing campaigns and strategies that are going to produce real revenue for their business. And the second thing that we're on a mission to do is really help marketers, people just like you, transform from a day-to-day marketer to what we call a revenue-generating marketer, because we believe that really is the future of marketing. In fact, Deloitte did this really great study last year where they went to some of the largest companies here in the United States and they asked the leadership of those companies, hey, what are you looking for in your marketing leadership? Like, what are those qualities that are the most important to you? And the number one thing that they said was that they're looking for marketing leaders that are able to enable, easy for me to say, revenue and pipeline growth. So as you're thinking about your role, it's really important that you start thinking about how can you be an enabler of pipeline and revenue growth. The next thing that they said is critical to these leaders of large companies is that they expect their marketing leaders to really own the customer experience, right? So they want to know that that marketer kind of owns who their customers are and how to move them through a process. And then the third point is that they really understand the data, right? There's a lot of data out there. We can measure everything today. We all know that. But not all that data is actionable. So the largest companies around today are really looking for marketing leaders that can kind of sift through that information and come up with actionable insights. And so one of the things that I'm going to encourage you today, one of my key points, right, is that if you're a marketing leader, I want you to start thinking about yourself as becoming a revenue-generating marketer. And so one of the first things I want to ask you, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, is, how do you think you're perceived today within the company that you work for? If you were to go around to leadership, or maybe not you, maybe somebody in your company, would go in and say, hey, what do you think about Sally? What do you think about Joe? Would they think of you as somebody that owns lead generation for your business, that owns pipeline growth, that really owns the user experience? And so just think about that. Because if you're going to become a revenue-generating marketer, you're really going to have to own those things. You can't be afraid of pipeline growth, and you really need to be known as that go-to guy or gal that understands the customer experience. And so if you want to have a great career, my encouragement to you would be, to figure your customer out better than anybody else in the company. What industries are they in? What do they look like? What size of company? What keeps them awake at night? Those are all things that when somebody has a question in your company about the customer, they go, hey, I'm going to talk to that person because they really get our customer. And I think if you'll do that, you're going to have job security. And quite frankly, the other side of that coin, unfortunately, if you don't own lead generation, if you don't own pipeline growth and own the customer experience, I don't think you're going to have great job security. But if you do own those things, man, I think your career is going to go in really great places. So, we've been doing these lunch and learns for a long time. We took them online in the fall of last year, and it's worked out really great. But one thing that's different now than in the past is, you guys would come into a banquet hall, and we'd feed you lunch, and you'd be kind of not locked in, but you'd be kind of a captive audience, right? And so I could hold your attention pretty easy for about an hour. Well, now I know that I'm competing with your email, and I'm competing with the internet and YouTube and all those other things. And so I'm going to encourage you to pay attention because, hey, 3Xing your pipeline is important, and I'm going to bribe you with a really awesome gated asset. In fact, Lauren, who's manning our chat right now, is the one that authored and kind of quarterbacked this process. But we've got a brand new resource. It's the LinkedIn, the Ultimate Guide to LinkedIn B2B Marketing. It's a 33-page guide. It's really awesome, and we're going to drop a link to that at the very end, so please stick around for that. Before I get too far into it, though, I do have a confession to make. early on in my career, I actually got my career started all the way back in 1990. I'm dating myself, and I was on the dark side back then, not in marketing, but actually in sales and technology sales. That's where I kind of got my start in technology sales. And to be honest with you, I don't feel this way today, but I'm just going to be kind of transparent with you. When I started, 30 years ago in sales, I thought the marketing's job, the role of marketing was really to put logos on tchotchkes, right? If I was going to be at a trade show, the marketing department was the one that put the logo on the coffee mug. They're the ones that put the logo on the pen. If I needed a leave behind for a new prospect, the marketing department was the one that was going to produce that. I had no expectation back then that the marketing department was responsible for generating leads and opportunities for me. That was my job as a sales guy. Now, fast forward to the late 90s, I got recruited out of technology sales and into an e-commerce company. And this is right when the internet was just blowing up. In fact, they called it the internet bubble back then. And I was working at this e-commerce company. I was sitting in a meeting. We're about to launch this e-commerce store for one of my clients. And one of the folks in the meeting looked across the desk from me or the table from me and asked me the question, hey, what are you guys going to do to optimize this store? And this was like 99. And I'm like, optimize? What do you mean by that? And she said, well, did you know that there are things you can do to this store so that it will rank higher in Yahoo, Alta Vista, and Lycos? Because back then, those were the big search engines back then. And I'd never heard of that before, but I became super fascinated with it. In fact, once I understood that that was possible, man, I started consuming everything that I could about digital marketing back then. It was an interesting time because back then, man, people thought the internet was brand new, it was blowing up, that all you had to do was slap a shopping cart on the back of a website and you would make a gazillion dollars. Now, I don't know how many people remember this commercial. I was really excited when I found it on YouTube. I've just got some screenshots here. But this was a UPS commercial. It came out like 1999 or maybe early 2000. And the scene is, here's this company, they're about to launch their brand new e-commerce storefront, and they're all anxiously waiting. And I love this retro. I mean, this was like the modern e-commerce site back then. It is 30 years ago or 20 years ago, but they're all anxiously waiting. In fact, this guy's about to pass out. He's so excited about the launch. And then they launch it. And they get their very first sale. And then everybody starts celebrating. Oh my gosh, we got a sale. This is amazing. And then the very next scene, like a second later, there's over 100,000 sales running through their e-commerce site. And then, of course, it's, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And that was the point of the commercial. UPS was saying, hey, if your sales blow up, call us. We'll help you sort that thing out. But that's the point that I really want to make. Back then, everybody thought just adding a shopping cart to your website was going to make all the difference. But what I was noticing was that nobody was really thinking about, the marketing side of this. How do you find the right customer? How do you get them to be aware that you exist, get them to come to your website and do something valuable? And because I was already researching digital marketing at that time, I became really fascinated with that. Well, fast forward a few months and the digital or the internet bubble burst, right? That was like March or April of 2000. And I wasn't sure that the company that I was working for was even going to stay in business. And certainly my options were no longer worth anything. I was a young person at the time and had 2 kids at home. I was worried about losing my job. And so what I decided to do 20 years ago was leave that company and actually start a digital marketing agency specifically to help B2B companies. Because one of the things that I saw, and this was kind of my aha moment, and believe it or not, it's the same passion 20 years later that I have. And that is helping B2B companies leverage the things that B2C companies kind of are early to jump on. Always seems like B2C companies are the early adopters and B2B companies are the laggards, if you will. And so what we've been focused on the last 20 years is really helping B2Bs take advantage of this really awesome thing called the internet. You would be amazed at some of the conversations that I had 20 years ago with CEOs of B2B companies, and they were like, I don't need a website. I don't need to market my business online. I go to trade shows. I got sales reps. And so the cool thing is that even today, there are amazing things that we can do as B2B companies. And my guess is many of the things I'm going to talk you through today are things maybe you haven't tried before, but are absolutely available to us as B2Bs to help connect with our customers and grow our sales. Now, one thing that I also know is true is that the fundamentals really haven't changed in 20 years or probably forever, right? At the end of the day, our marketing really needs to help us get in front of the right buyer to help move them through a process and ultimately get them to a place where they can say yes. That's true today. It was true 20 years ago. And so we just need to wield this new technology and the new tactics that are available to us in such a way to accomplish these things. And that's really what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today. And so when we talk about 3Xing our pipeline, you're going to hear me introduce this new concept that we call a digital surround, because we believe at Vendy Digital that the number one way for you to 3X your pipeline this year is by implementing what we call a digital surround. Now, you may be asking yourself, what in the world is a digital surround? And I'm really glad you asked the question because I'm about to answer it for you. So a digital surround is simply this. It's a strategic process that makes you omnipresent to your ideal prospect. Not the whole world, but to your ideal prospects. Basically, to that subset of the world, these ideal customers, we want to make you look a lot bigger than you are. And we do that by, tying paid ads and content marketing and marketing automation and digital selling and all these different tactics together so that you're able to engage with your buyer, your prospect, at the right time with the right information that they need so that they can accomplish their goals and objectives and overcome the problems that you guys are uniquely qualified to overcome. So that's what we mean by a digital surround. And they're really, really important because, as I mentioned earlier, it's a noisy world out there. It's one of the challenges that as B2B marketers, we're all having to overcome is how noisy it is. And so we've got to cut through that noise and get in front of our ideal prospects. And really a digital surround is the way that we're going to accomplish that. And so when we think about the benefits that we can gain by taking this approach to our digital marketing, there's several of them. Number one, we're going to get measurable and predictable pipeline growth. I really want to create an environment for you where when you need more leads, you can just push a button, basically, or a process or systems, we'll get into that, and actually get more leads out of your system. So if you're short on leads, push a button, get more leads. It really can be that simple. Number two, we want to eliminate waste. And we'll get more into this later as well. But when we're spending advertising dollars trying to get in front of people that don't have an interest or really have problems that we can't solve for them, that's called waste. And by implementing a digital surround, we can eliminate waste. And then number three, increase frequency. Man, this is one of the biggest problems that I see B2B companies have when it comes to executing digital marketing campaigns. Their audience is so large and their budget is so limited that they've spent advertising dollars, but they didn't get the frequency that they needed. Remember, marketing is an exercise in memorization. So we could spend $10,000 and really reach a group of people one time, and you might as well light that money on fire, because what you've got to do is find those ideal prospects and advertise to them over and over again to amp that frequency up, and that's where you're going to get the results. And that's what a digital surround can do for you. And then finally, because of all these things, you're going to get better return on investment. Now, I know this is important to all of you because in that survey that you filled out prior to coming to today's webcast, the number one and number two challenges that you're having, and we had over 200 people fill out this survey, was generating more sales qualified leads and then generating more marketing qualified leads. So we know that lead generation is really important to you, and so we're going to focus on that a lot. So when you think about a digital surround, I'm going to try to give you an analogy here. I want you to think about a digital surround as like a popcorn popper, okay? And so what you do is you take your kernels, okay, and that's your target audience, and you add them into that popcorn popper, and then you heat them up, okay? And you heat them up with your ads, you heat them up with your content, you heat them up by staying top of mind, and when they're ready to go, they're going to pop out into the bowl. And then that's what you're going to hand off to the sales reps. We would call those sales qualified leads. And notice the sales rep over there is pretty happy because they're getting some popcorn. They're not happy when you give them kernels. Okay? And most of the time, when I hear a marketing leader tell me that sales doesn't think we can generate good qualified leads for them, and I peel back the onion a little bit and take a look at what they're doing, guess what they're doing? They're handing popcorn kernels, marketing qualified leads, or maybe even suspects or prospects to the sales team and asking and telling them that they're popcorn when they're not popcorn, right? You've got to heat them up first. Your sales reps only want to work on deals that are active, right? Marketing needs to own deals that aren't active because we can't really control when a buyer's ready to buy, right? All we can do is be there. So buyers get to pick when they're ready to buy, and we just have to be who they think of when they're ready to buy. And so a digital surround is the way that you're going to stay in their universe, that you're going to file away in their brain how you can solve problems for them so that when they go from a marketing qualified lead or even a prospect or suspect to a sales qualified lead, they're going to call you or engage with you because you're already there. Now, I want to give you another quick case study. This is Dirk, and we actually launched a digital surround for Dirk right at the beginning of Q4 of last year. And so they're a brand new client. We're excited to be working with them. And he was excited to share this quote with us where, right after we launched the campaign, man, we started generating all kinds of leads for them. And what's really cool, because we were implementing a digital surround, is they're trying to get to the CFO of some of the largest retail companies in the United States, companies that have lots and lots of real estate, like retail locations all over the country. And so we've already been able to generate significant amounts of leads where they're having very meaningful conversations with these CFOs. And so this digital surround stuff absolutely does work. One disclaimer here, though, as we go through the information, I want you to think of this digital surround as like a Ferrari, okay? It's a car that can get you from point A to point B really fast, but just like a Ferrari, and this is my buddy Jack, he actually sells Ferraris, and he posted this a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago, and I just stole it from him, but I wish I had his job sometime. Selling Ferraris is pretty cool, but still, in order to get a Ferrari to go from point A to point B, we've got to drive it and we've got to put fuel in it, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because if we don't do those things, we can have the best, most awesome car in the world, it's not going to get us anywhere. You may be asking yourself, well, do I really need a digital surround, or will this really work? And my encouragement to you is, if you're leaning on any of these old clunkers, okay, to try to grow your pipeline, things that aren't available to us anymore, or just don't work as well anymore, you really ought to be thinking about, well, how can you leverage a digital surround? And this is a great opportunity because I think we have an opportunity, everybody that's watching this webcast today, from Vindy Digital to everybody here, and we have over 320 people registered for the webcast today. Now is a great time to take a lead over your competition because everybody's trying to figure this stuff out right now. But here's the key point. We can put you in a Ferrari, or the things I'm going to walk you through today can put you in a Ferrari, and your competition can still be having rocking chair races, right? And I think a Ferrari is going to get there a lot faster than a couple of people in rocking chairs. So this really is a great opportunity for you to get in front of your competition and grab those customers before they do. Now, the 3 digital marketing hacks we're going to walk through today kind of work together, okay? So it's building the right plan. So if we're going to really implement a digital marketing surround the right way and get in front of our customers, grow our pipeline this year, we've got to have a plan, right? Failing to plan is planning to fail. Number 2, we've got to leverage winning systems, right? We don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. We want to take things that are already working and replicate them for our business. And then number 3, we've got to get really good traffic to feed our system and really fuel our system. So think about this as like a 3-legged stool, okay? So, a 3-legged stool needs 3 legs in order for it to stand up, right? 2 legs on a 3-legged stool doesn't work. And so if we're going to implement a digital surround, we need to have a good plan, we need to have good systems, and we need to have good traffic to make that work. So the first thing we're going to do is really just look at planning. And what I'm going to do as we go through this material is kind of share with you how we plan for our customers. And the reason why planning is important is we need to understand what winning looks like, right? What are we trying to accomplish as a business? We need to understand who we should be targeting. Man, I can't emphasize enough how important that is today. We need to know what to say to our customers when we interact with them. And then finally, we need to understand the buyer journey so that we can influence that. And I know this is important to everybody that's watching today because one of the questions that we asked in the survey was, how's your digital marketing plan? And can you believe it? With over 200 responses, nearly 90% of you said either you don't have a plan or your plan needs work. Only about 10% of you feel like you are rocking it on your digital marketing plan. So let's really kind of dig in and understand first, what are the challenges with planning? And number one, it's really understanding what our desired outcomes are. What are we trying to accomplish with our plan? What is our media budget? I often hear when I'm talking to marketing leaders about planning for digital, they don't know what the end game is. That would be number one. They don't know where they're trying to go. And then number two, they don't know how much money they should be spending in creating assets or media budget or whatever. So that's always a challenge. Number three is identifying the right tactics, like where should we be investing our time, energy, and dollars? And then number four, really understanding what customers want at those different stages. Here's a key point. If we want a 3x our pipeline this year, we really need to figure out what our marketing plan is that we're going to run, because we're not going to 3x it unless we really figure out what that plan is that we're going to run. So let me introduce you to our framework, and we really do believe if you'll follow this framework I'm about to walk you through, it's going to make implementing a digital surround super simple and super easy for your business. Now, I've got several of these chalkboard diagrams I'm going to walk you through today. This first one is what we call our lead funnel framework, and it really is, the process by which we work all of our clients through to help them get as much value out of digital as possible. Now, there's three pillars to our framework. The first pillar is the planning phase, where we need to understand what are our goals, what are we trying to achieve, who's our audience, and we don't want to try to boil the ocean, right? We want to try to get to those ideal prospects, and so we need to identify who they are. We need to understand the right messaging. So what are the right words that are going to get them excited about our business and make them curious about how we can help them accomplish their goals? And then finally, we need to come up with the topics or content that we need to create over the next year. They're going to draw those folks in. And so that's the planning pillar, if you will. So that's step one of the process. Step two of the process is really activating your audience. And you'll notice I used a different color here because this is really where the digital surround works, right? So activating your audience just simply means understanding where your customer is and make sure that you're there too. So you need to have a plan around search. You need to have a plan around social. How are you going to engage with your ideal prospects on social? You also need to understand, and every industry is different. That's why we just call this other. But every industry has websites or influencers, if you will, or industry websites where your audience is already congregating. And so you need to understand those places and what your opportunities are to really connect with your audience there. And then finally, we need to have a plan for digital selling. What do we want our sales reps to do to really support our digital marketing efforts? Okay, once we've activated our audience, then we can move into establishing authority, and the best place to do that is on your website. So everything that we've done up until this point is really designed to get people to come to your website where you can establish what we call authority and empathy. And authority means, hey, I'm qualified to solve the problem that you have, Mr. Prospect. And then empathy is, and I really am interested and motivated to help you solve that problem. The best place to do that is your website and your blog. And then from there, we're going to convert people, get them to opt into things, and that's where we have the opportunity to nurture those relationships. And there's things that we need to do to warm up an MQL and turn them into SQLs, and that's where marketing automation and things like that really come into play. So when you're thinking about building out your digital surround for this year, think about these four pillars and really what is your plan going to be within each of those pillars. Now, I've got another real quick case study for you. So this is another client of ours that we've been working with for about 1.5 years. And we started working with them, and we were able to implement many of the things that we're talking about today and really kind of work them through a framework just like we walked you guys through. And what's really cool about this particular client is that they had enormous pipeline growth. And so I love it. This is actually one of my favorite types of quotes, and I get these from multiple clients, but Amy did such a good job talking about it here. And that is, hey, whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it because it's working so well. And so I encourage you guys, try these things out because they absolutely will work for your business. Okay, so that was hack number one. We're going to take a look at hack number two here, which is really the system, right? It's another leg of our stool. And this type of, this leg is really important for us because it's going to help us run the right plays. It's going to help us leverage technology. Technology is super important. And it's going to help us maximize our impact that we're trying to have with these ideal customers. Now, when it comes to running the right systems or having the right system in place, there are a few challenges I wanted to share with you. The number one is the number one, man. I can't tell you how often I run into this with a company that's wanting to do digital marketing, and I go take a look at their systems, and they're just non-existent. Maybe they've got a MailChimp account or a Constant Contact account, or maybe they have Salesforce, but they're not doing anything in marketing with any of that information. So they don't have a good system in place. Another key one is sales and marketing alignment. If sales and marketing are in silos, they're not working together, the lines are so blurred today between what a salesperson does and what marketing does that you really need to be aligned. And if you're not aligned, then it's going to be hard to be successful with digital. And then number three, and I heard this over and over again in your survey responses, overworked and overwhelmed. Hey, we want a good system. We want to run digital marketing the right way. But man, if you can invent a 27-hour day instead of a 24-hour day, then maybe I can do something, but I'm just overworked. I don't have the time to figure this stuff out. So those are the big system challenges. But here's the good news. You guys told us in the survey, you're going to be executing on a lot of digital tactics this year, okay? Those are good news because all of this stuff actually is a part of a system. I just want to show you in the next couple of slides how you can tie all these types of activities together for you. So when we talk systems at Vindy Digital, this is really what we're talking about here. So there's 4 components to systems in our world. The first component is offers. And so when you think about offers, or what we're kind of lumping into this category of offers, that would be, your content, gated assets, anything that you're, going to be promoting out there into the marketplace to attract your buyer to your brand, right? So that's what we mean by offers. Then we have user experience down here. So that's the next leg. So that would be your online footprint, wherever that buyer or potential customer is going to interact with you. That would be your website, that would be your blog, landing pages, even your social presence. That's part of your system, okay? That's your footprint. And that's where you're going to have user experience. The next part of the system process, or our system framework, if you will, is the follow-up, right? We're all B2Bs. Most of us are not selling something on our website today, but we've got long sales cycles that we're dealing with, and we're needing to move people through a funnel, if you will. And so the follow-up process is super critical, okay? So that's really what happens after they've engaged with you. What does that follow-up process look like? So that's emailing and texting. That's having maybe SDRs, sales development reps, calling and qualifying the leads. What are you doing from a digital selling perspective? What are you having your sales reps do? Those are all parts of the ingredients of a system. Now, underneath that system, and then technology, sorry, I left the most important one out. So marketing automation, CRM, and analytics, those all kind of work together in the middle. It's the glue that ties all that together. And then once you've got your ingredients, the next thing you need to overlay this with are plays. And what I mean by plays are, what are the things that you're going to do with your audience and leveraging these 4 components on your behalf. So, that would be, what is my play for running a campaign or launching an asset or running an event like this? And we're going to walk you through our plays on that in just a second. Sales follow-up, what does all that look like? You want to script those out. Just like a football team has plays, we as a marketing department need to have plays for doing these types of activities if we want to have predictable success. So I'm going to take a breath here and actually take a sip as we think about the systems and where they fit into the buyer journey. Because everything we do, we need to do from the outside in, right? And so we've got Dirk here. He's one of our customers. We want to take Dirk from an ideal prospect to a new client, right? And a digital surround is how we're going to do that. We basically want to take him from, I've never heard of Vindy Digital, to, yes, I do business with Vindy Digital, and I love them, right? So what does that look like? And so when we work with our clients, we walk them through this buyer journey that starts with awareness, right? I've never heard of Vindy Digital. And what we're doing there is we're making sure that they're creating really good content that their customers care about, and we're pushing that content out and activating our audience, making sure that wherever their customers are, that they have access to that content. Next, we move into curiosity, right? So curiosity is, hey, who is this company Vendy I keep hearing about? Boy, I'm seeing them everywhere. Remember, it's that digital surround is really starting to come into play. And then from there, we move them into enlightenment. And enlightenment is all about, man, I kind of like Vendy's point of view on this. I think the way that they are thinking about solving my problem or helping me grow my business kind of makes sense to me. That's the enlightenment phase. And again, what we're doing here is making sure they're engaging with our content. We're teeing up opportunities for them to go deeper with us. Maybe that's teeing up guides or inviting them to events like this one. So that's the enlightenment phase. And then we move into the consideration phase, and this is where the buyer starts thinking, you know what? I really do think that Vendy can help solve my lead generation problem, can help me grow my pipeline. And so this is where, now your sales reps are very involved, and we're trying to get, these macro concepts about how to solve problems and make them very specific to Dirk's world. Hey, Dirk, this is how we would solve that problem for you. And that's why digital selling becomes very important at this stage. And then finally, we get to commitment. We get to that end game where Dirk is a client and he's very happy with the services that you provide. So when you're thinking about systems and running plays, we've got to move our buyers through this journey. Ultimately, it comes down to this, everyone, trust. You want to know why your digital marketing campaigns don't work? It's because you haven't established trust. And there's a lot a lot goes into building that trust, basically. But if you're running a pay-per-click campaign to a stranger and trying to get them to fill out a contact us form on your site to meet with one of your sales reps for a demo, you have not established trust. And those types of campaigns, most of the time, don't work. And this buyer journey that I just walked you through is the process that you need to take a buyer through so that you build that trust, you establish that authority, and establish that empathy that we were talking about. Okay, well, let's run some plays here. So basically, we're going to pull up a chalkboard here again, and I'm going to talk you through 2 plays that we get asked for all the time. And based on your feedback that we got in your surveys, I thought would be really valuable to everybody here today. So the first one we're going to walk you through is the launch the new asset play. And so literally, whenever we launch a new asset at Vendy Digital or for our clients, and we customize these for every client, but we pull out the playbook, right? And we pull these plays out so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So whenever we're launching a new asset, we're going to run targeted ads, we're going to have a digital selling effort, and we're going to run some email campaigns, and we're going to drive that to a landing page. Now, all of this up here is really what our digital surround is all about. Okay, so that process is kind of represented by the left side of this chalkboard. And then what happens once they get to the landing page, we're going to ask them to make a decision, right? And they're either going to opt in or they're not. And if they don't opt in, we just kind of run them back through our digital surround. So they just stay there in the popcorn popper, heating up until they're ready to take the next step. Now, if they do say yes, we take them to an asset delivery page. And on that page, they can get the asset, but they're also given the opportunity to take the next step and become an SQL. And if they become an SQL, they want to talk to a sales rep, they're ready to go, then we just hand it off to the sales team, right? If they're not ready to go, then we drop them into another digital surround, and we're just representing that here as digital surround B. And from there, they go through a process that is very heavily weighted on the email marketing side. Yes, they're still going to see ads and they're going to still see content in social, but primarily we're going to send them a series of 5 emails to try to warm them up. And so that's our lead generation play for a new asset launch. We had a lot of requests, and I get it every time we do one of these webcasts on, hey, what do you do to market and get so many people to show up to your webcast? So I'm going to walk you through that super fast. And so we have a digital surround, obviously, and then we're driving that to a landing page, but we have a few other pages that we build whenever we run an event like this. We have our webinar page that is gated. You guys got to experience that today as you were logging in. Then we have a convert page. You'll get to experience that in about 20 minutes or so. And then we also have a replay page. So because you came today, you'll be able to watch this on the replay page a little bit later. And so once you get to the landing page, you either register or not. And just like in a gated asset world, we're going to run you back through that digital surround if you don't convert. Now, if you do convert, and I'm sure everybody that's on this webcast today experienced these emails, but we send you 3 very specific emails with very specific goals for each one of those emails. And then the day of, and you just experienced that at the beginning of this webcast, we give you an opportunity to text us so that we can send you something. And in this case, we had you text us so that we could send you the slides. Now we're building a phone list that we can use for the future. And so that's basically how we market our events. And then from there, we go into a post-event sequence. I don't have time to walk you through that today, but guess what? You came to this event, so you're gonna get to experience that firsthand a little bit later on. So I want to show you a couple of quick ways that this looks in real life, right? I don't have a ton of time today, so I'm just wanting to really kind of pique your interest on how this stuff works. But this is what we call the 1-2 punch play, where, because we've got good technology, when I'm sitting at my desk throughout the day, I can see all of our targeted prospects that are visiting our website. And when I see somebody that is visiting our website that I'm trying to engage with, like this example down here, this is a marketing qualified lead I'm trying to warm up, I immediately go look them up on LinkedIn, and 99% of the time I'm already connected to them on LinkedIn, which is what your sales rep should do. And then I reach out to that person unbeknownst to them. They have no idea that I know that they were just on our website, but then I drop a gated asset or something of value to them. So in this case, you can see that I saw that this guy, Brad, was on our website, and I just sent him a message and dropped him a link to an asset. So that's what we call the 1-2 punch play. Now, there's a really cool case study I want to share with you here that happened just recently. This was back in December. I was running the 1-2 punch play, and I saw that Kathy was on our website, and I reached out to find her on LinkedIn, but I discovered that she had just gotten a new job as the CEO of a company. And so instead of just dropping an asset in the message on LinkedIn, I just congratulated her for her new job. And you'll see she responded right afterwards saying, hey, I've got this new job, and you know what? I need help with digital marketing. Let's set up a call and talk. And so that's really kind of how this stuff works. Okay, as we wrap up this leg, the systems leg, I wanted to give you one more quick case study. This is a client we've had the opportunity to work with for, a long time. But during COVID, we all kind of got together and said, what can we do to really refine our messaging and really do some things to maximize the user experience on our website? So we got together as a team, and we spent a lot of time working on improving their messaging and improving their calls to action. And lo and behold, that effort during COVID, we were able to grow their leads over 230%. Okay, so let's take a look at the last hack of the day here, and that's the traffic hack. And man, I'll tell you, it may be one of the most important. Again, it's a 3-legged stool. They're all important, or your stool's gonna fall over. But if you don't have fuel for your digital surround, it's gonna be like that Ferrari that we were talking about, right? If you don't have gasoline in that Ferrari, it's not gonna go from point A to point B, even though it's a really fast car, right? So we've gotta have fuel to make a digital surround go. Now, here's some challenges that I see all the time when it comes to, traffic and getting the right kind of traffic. Number one, and man, I really hope you hear this, you're not spending enough energy and effort or money in the top of the funnel. You've got to be top of funnel because remember, we're trying to get in front of those target customers. We don't have to be top of the funnel with everyone, but just those target customers, because marketing is an exercise in memorization, right? And so we want to be constantly impressing upon them who we are and the problems that we solve. And too many companies are not spending enough money there or enough time, energy, and effort. It's not just money. Also, this one-trick pony approach. If you're trying one tactic and throwing money at it or trying to generate traffic with one tactic, it's just not going to work. And then finally, number 3, which is really kind of a subset of number 2, you're not trying the right options, right? So maybe you're just doing pay-per-click, but all your customers are on LinkedIn, right? Or maybe you're doing LinkedIn and all your customers are on YouTube. And so you've got to bring in the right options that are going to activate that audience. Remember that second pillar of our framework, we got to go where our customers go. And if we're not spending money to get there, then we might be invisible to them. Okay, so I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but one of my favorite movies is this movie Field of Dreams, right? And the whole concept, for those of you that have seen it and for those of you that haven't, The idea is that this guy was a farmer, and if he would cut down a bunch of his corn crops and actually build a baseball diamond in the middle of his cornfields, that all these famous baseball players, including his dad, would come back. Okay, hopefully I didn't spoil the movie for everybody, but that he hopes his dad will come back. And here's the key point: great movie, loved the movie, but man, that does not work in B2B marketing. We can't build all this stuff and just think, if you build it, they will come, right? That's just not going to happen. We've got to do some work in order to get our customers to come to us. And there's two key areas that we have to focus in. One is earning our way in, and the other one is buying your way in. And oftentimes I see marketers kind of fall in one of two camps. They're either in the earn your way in camp or the buy your way in camp, and you really need to be in both camps. And so I'm going to give you some quick examples in both. The first one we're going to talk about is really earning your way in, and employee amplification, podcasts, and YouTubes. Again, there's lots of ways that you can earn your way in, but we're just going to talk about a few because we have limited time today. So let's take a look at those. So earning your way in, employee amplification is simply this. Get your sales reps, get your subject matter experts, get your executives involved in spreading the word about your business. I cannot impress upon you how valuable that is. And this case study, I hope, will drive the point. So I mentioned earlier, we've had over 320 people registered for today's webcast. And whenever we do a webcast, we set up a LinkedIn event page, and that gives us the opportunity for our sales reps to basically invite their first connections to attend the webcast. And so I'm the primary sales guy at Vindy Digital, and so what I did once we set up that event page is I went in and I invited many of our first connections of my first connections to come. And many of you watching, I'm sure, that's how you became aware of this. Now, here's the cool thing. You can see it right here. 146 of 320 people actually came that way. That means we paid $0 for that 146 people to register for this event. Nearly 50% of the folks came that way. That's the power of earning your way in and employee amplification. Now, we've got some tools that we use. Again, kind of goes back to systems, right? Whenever we work with our clients, we give them access to a tool we call Vindy Amp. And Vindy Amp, whenever we create social content, that also gives their sales reps the opportunity for us to not only push that content out to the company's brand pages, like on their LinkedIn company page, but also we have the opportunity, with the permission of their sales reps and other key executives, to push that same content out. That at the same time it's going out on the company page, that it can also go out on that sales rep's LinkedIn profile page, for example. So it's a calendar that gives us the ability to do that. The other thing that we can do, and again, technology is not Vindy Amp isn't the only way to accomplish this, but we also create a library of content. So sometimes you want to be able to push content out, and certainly things that you're going to put on your LinkedIn company page, for example, it would be awesome for your sales reps to share that. But also sometimes reps want to have a library of content. They want to be able to pick and choose what they want to publish. And so we are able to do that. Again, lots of tools out there can do that for you so that they can go find something. Maybe they want to run a campaign or talk about a particular problem that they want to share with their audience. And this is a great way for them to do that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is podcasts. So a great way to get earned traffic and earned awareness is getting your subject matter experts, whether that's your CEO or VP or CMO or whatever, out on the podcast circuit. I can tell you that for Vindy Digital, my plan is to be on 20 podcasts this year. The cool thing about being a podcast guest, and by the way, all of these podcast hosts are looking for guests, they're hungry for guests, is that I'm able to borrow their audience, right? So if I pick the right podcasts and I'm a guest on their podcast, then I get to borrow their audience and draw that audience into my environment. And so I'm going to show you a really quick cheat here. It's kind of a cheat within a cheat, right? Or a hack within a hack, if you will. So, obviously when you want to find the podcast to be on, find somebody that's already in your industry that's very active in the podcast circuit. And so in this case, this is Stephanie Buscemi. She's the CMO of Salesforce, and she's very active in podcasts. And so, obviously I would want to be on the same podcast that she's on. So here's the hack. Just simply type in that influencer's name inside of Google, put parentheses on both sides, and then add the word podcast, and guess what you're going to get? The search result is going to be every single podcast that person has actually been a guest on. Because every podcast has show notes, And those show notes get indexed by Google, so it's really easy then to go find and kind of reverse engineer podcasts that you might want your executives on. So give that a try. Another thing that you can do from a earned traffic perspective is take your good videos and in the comment area of your videos, drop a link to a page on your website that gives that buyer or that customer more information on that particular topic. And that's a great way to siphon traffic from YouTube onto your website. It's always important, optimize that YouTube video too, so you get as much traffic and exposure as possible to that video so you can siphon it over to your site. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears now and talk about buying your way in. And oops, I kind of got a little click happy there. There's two things that we really need to focus on: tip of the spear traffic and retargeting traffic. And these are so both incredibly important for your digital surround. You know, tip of the spear is really trying to get in front of your target audience, but they don't know that you exist. And then the retargeting traffic is really, and there's so many different ways to retarget today. I won't have time to go into all that in this session, but those are people that already know that you exist, right? And so when we're thinking about our paid campaigns, we want to make sure that we're spending money in both areas, that we're doing audience targeting on the left side, and that we're retargeting people that come to our website or interact with our content on the right side. The challenge that companies have, and I talked about this a little bit earlier already, they're trying to boil the ocean with their limited advertising budget, and you just can't do that. It's so much better to pick the right audience, and what we call the smallest viable audience for your business. You don't want it to go too small where you can't really get anything going, any good momentum, but you don't want to go too large. So you really want to focus in on what is that smallest viable audience that we can actually market to. And digital surrounds are great for that. So they're going to help you fine-tune your message. And once you have that small audience, we can fine-tune our message. Maybe it's an industry and we can talk about industry issues. We can amp up our frequency. We can eliminate waste so that we're not advertising or spending our dollars in places that we shouldn't. And then finally, we can improve our conversion rates for all the reasons above. You may be asking, well, how much money should I spend on one or the other? Well, that tip of the spear audience is a much bigger audience. So you need to spend about 70% of your budget on the tip of the spear, people that don't know that you exist today, and about 30% of your budget on the retargeting side. Just a couple of quick examples for you. So, top of the funnel, a great way of advertising in top of the funnel is taking your blog content, taking your subject matter expert content, and really just advertising, promoting that to your audience. I showed you this video earlier, but one of the things that we do at B2B Digital, when we have a really good video, we will actually boost that video inside of YouTube. You'll be amazed at how many impressions and clicks and things like that you can get for very little dollars. Mid-funnel is all about gated assets. We recommend that a company come up with at least one new gated asset every quarter, and then you run campaigns out to your target audience to get them to opt into those gated assets. Here's a great example. B2B companies ask me all the time, hey, is Facebook a good channel for B2B? And the answer is it depends. For us, it works great. You can see in this example here, and I took this screenshot about a week ago. So this is really only about 3 weeks of January data, but we've generated 86 mid-funnel leads at a cost per lead of about $7 a lead on Facebook just because of the way that we're targeting. Another thing you can do is leverage partners, and I'm sure that many of you watching today saw our ad in this newsletter that we advertised in. So we look for partners that have that same audience that we're trying to reach, and we work out deals, and sometimes we have advertising campaign, we run an ad. Sometimes we do cost per lead. It all depends on the deal, and every industry is different. You just have to find those places where your audience hangs out. And then bottom of the funnel, the idea is what is the next logical step for that buyer? If they've visited your website but haven't opted in, run campaigns to them to get them to opt into something. If they've opted in, then run campaigns to them to take whatever that next logical step is for your business. Maybe that's, set up a consultation call or sign up for a demo or something like that. You have to, once you know your buyer journey, then you can figure out really what kind of ads you need to run. But the idea is to move them through the next logical step. Okay, well, we kind of covered the 3 hacks, and I'm looking at the clock here, and I'm realizing we're at about 12:23, And I want to make sure that I've got maybe 5 or 10 more minutes worth of stuff, or maybe a little bit longer. So hopefully you can hang out with us. But those are the 3 big hacks, right? Those 3 legs of the stool that you really need to kind of prop up your digital surround. And if you're wanting to 3x your pipeline this year, these are the things you need to be thinking about. This is where you need to be spending your time. And so as we transition and kind of get through the rest of the presentation, I'm going to take a breath, because I know many of you, maybe 100% of you, probably feel like you've been fire hosed a little bit. I've been doing this type of thing for a long time, and one thing I always hear, 2 things: your content's great, I took lots of notes, but man, it was a fire hose. And I wish I could figure out a way to deliver this information and not so much a fire hose, but I guess it's just my style, so thanks for hanging with me. But I do want to ask you a couple of questions. Number 1, do you think if you implemented the things that I walked you through today, so if you implemented a digital surround and you thought through the 3 legs of the stool that I just walked you through, do you think that you could 3x your pipeline this year? And my hope is that many of you are kind of thumbs upping this and going, yeah, I think these are the things I need to be focusing on. If I focus on these things this year, that I might get a lot more growth out of my pipeline than I had last year. And the second question that I want to ask you is, do you think this process is a process that can help you go from a marketer to a revenue generating marketer? That if you focused on these things, the 3 legs of this stool and the B2B lead funnel framework and the systems and all the things that we talked through today, and you spent some time learning these things and really executing on these things this year, would you start becoming a revenue generating marketer? Because remember, that's one of the things, we're on a mission. We want to help you become a revenue generating marketer, because we know when you become a revenue generating marketer, you become irreplaceable, right? And that's what we want you to become, is irreplaceable. So here's a couple of secrets to success here that I want to share with you. And I'm going to take off my digital marketing hat and put on my CEO hat and just share with you some secrets to success that I've learned over 30 years. Number 1, and I can't take credit for this, this is something that I learned as I was going through new hire training 30 years ago in technology sales, but my boss came to me and he said this: hey, Paul, if you want to become ridiculously successful in your career, then quit thinking about yourself, quit worrying about your quota, and just focus on solving problems and help the companies that you work for become absurdly successful. So if you want to become ridiculously successful, focus on how you can make the company that you work for absurdly successful. And a way to think about this, and I share this with new Vendy team members when they come on board, and that is what I call the 10X rule. And if you can take your compensation, so your salary, benefits, all that stuff, and multiply that by 10, and can somehow validate or show your boss or leadership that you've delivered that amount of revenue to the business, man, you're going to be irreplaceable, right? Because not everybody thinks that way. And if you're focusing on, man, how can I produce 10 times my compensation for this business and make sure people know about it, your career is going to advance a lot. And here's the cool thing: in the world of digital marketing, or the world of marketing today, man, it's so easy for us to do that, because we can run digital marketing that produces MQLs, that produces SQLs, that become new clients. It's all trackable. And so it's really easy for us as marketers to show how we're producing at least 10 times our compensation in terms of value. All right, so when just kind of summarizing on this concept of revenue generating marketers, you need to really understand how to develop goals and KPIs, really how to turn messaging into something that's compelling, that creates that curiosity, right? Understand that words are what make people buy things, and make sure that you're intentional about the words that you create. Revenue generating marketers know how to leverage systems and playbooks to their advantage, and really understand how to leverage earned and paid tactics. So it's not one or the other, it's both of those things working together. I love this quote by Peter Drucker. It's one of my favorites, and he basically says, the best way to predict the future, right? And we're all talking about, hey, we want to 3x our pipeline this year. That's the future we're trying to predict. The best way to do that is basically create that. And so let's take a step back and just remember some of the reasons why campaigns fail, because as you're thinking about digital marketing, or what I talked about at the very beginning, that you're probably here because you've tried some digital marketing that hasn't worked before. It's always going to be one of these 4 things, or sometimes it's a combo of these things. Either poor targeting, your tactics were incorrect, your messaging wasn't on mark, right? It wasn't, I'm talking about the problems that you can solve for your customers, or your offer just didn't hit the mark, right? They didn't really care about your offer. It wasn't something that they were interested in. And so when you're thinking about, well, how do we create a better future? We need to make sure that we've got those things kind of figured out. And so as we think about launching a digital surround, what I want to encourage you to do is really set it up the right way. And we've got some good news, and I want to walk you through this in the last few minutes that we have together today before we get into questions, is if you recall when I walked you through our framework a little bit earlier today, that the first step of the framework, that first pillar, is really the planning phase. And we've actually developed a service that actually accomplishes that first pillar for you. We call it the Digital Marketing Roadmap, and it basically does everything that you need in order to 3x your pipeline. So it's a service that we can provide, and I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes to walk you through it just so you're aware that it exists. But it will help you 3x your pipeline this year. It'll make sure that you're not wasting any time. I mean, quite frankly, everything that I've walked you through today and everything that we can do for you, you can go watch videos on YouTube, you can go read articles online, but the challenge with that is the time to consume all that information. But not only that, it's the time to go try all this stuff out. Or you can leverage a company like us that's been doing this for over 20 years, right? So your time is really valuable. And really, it's the key of tying all this together where we take everything that you know about your industry and everything that we know about digital marketing, and we mash that up to create a plan that works for your business. And to just summarize what's in it, there's a customized go-to-market plan where we build a plan together. We develop a messaging playbook. So we figure out all those words that are going to make your customer very curious about your brand and communicate to them how you can solve their problems. We also figure out all your audience targeting. Remember, we don't want to boil the ocean. We want the smallest viable audience. And so we help you figure that out. We've got great tools and processes to accomplish that. Number 4, you guys, almost 100% of you said that you're doing something in content marketing this year. And so part of our digital marketing roadmap is to help you figure out what are the topics you should be writing about. So we will develop a content strategy for you. Number 5 is really coming up with a media plan, understanding how much money you should be spending in digital marketing and where you should place those advertising investments. And then finally, number 6, bringing all those tactics and plays together so that we can create momentum for your customer, get them aware that you exist, and then move them through your funnel. Now, we offer this digital marketing roadmap as $6,495. It's a one-time charge. And I'm just going to encourage you, I'm going to basically make us go through the same litmus test I just asked you to go through. Remember when I said just a few minutes ago, hey, take your salary, your compensation, multiply it by 10, and that's how much value you need to bring to the company that you work for. Well, I'm going to do the same thing for us. So this digital marketing roadmap is a $6,495 investment, and so if you multiply that by 10, it's basically $65,000. So my question to you is, do you think if you had somebody like Vindy help you get more focus, get more clarity on who you should be messaging to and who your audience is, and really understand the right framework and the right tactics to bring to the table, could you generate $65,000 worth of new revenue by having us work with you to accomplish that? I know for many of our clients, that's less than one customer. So the question might be, hey, can I invest $6,500 with Vindy and get at least one customer over the next 12 months? And if you're saying yes right now, then I would encourage you to really kind of take the next step with us and go schedule a one-on-one session with me. Now, because you're here, we are providing an early bird special for you, and we're going to actually knock $500 off our price. And so if you can kind of get through your red tape on your end and make sure you meet with me and get all of your questions answered over the next 7 days, so a week from today, February the 3rd, then instead of paying $6,400, $6,500 for the roadmap, we'll let you have it for $59.95. But here's the key. We need you to be able to sign up for it within the next 7 days. And so that basically drops the price down to $59.95. Now, to go and take the next step, you need to go to vindydigital.com/go, vindydigital.com/go. It looks like this. When you get there, you'll see a really short 1-minute video from me. I encourage you to watch that. But scroll down to the bottom part of the landing page, and you'll see over there on the left side is an opportunity to actually access my calendar directly and schedule a 45-minute meeting. And I highly encourage you to do that, whether you're interested in the digital marketing roadmap or you just have questions about what we've talked about today. It's a complimentary meeting. So just go to that website, vendidigital.com/go. And as soon as you click there, it's a Calendly link. You'll see my calendar, and you can schedule something at your convenience. The other side of the page, though, is where you can get that free resource that I talked about at the beginning. So that's that LinkedIn guide. Be sure to get that. And so I really do appreciate everybody's time today. We're right at 12:34, and I appreciate you guys hanging with me. I do have a few questions that I'm going to go through. I know that you've been asking questions of us throughout the entire process today, and that's great. But many of you asked questions in the survey, and I've condensed those down into 4 or 5. And so I'm going to stick around and answer those questions for you here live. Again, schedule that one-on-one session. If you didn't get your questions answered, happy to make sure that we get those answered for you. But probably spend another 5 or 10 minutes tops going through these questions. If you can hang, great. If you can't hang, that's fine, and thank you so much for coming out. Be sure to schedule that one-on-one session for me. I look forward to meeting you. But let's take a look at some of these questions that you guys had. I'm going to take a sip because I have been flying the last 15 minutes. All right. Again, sorry about the fire hose, right? So here's one of the questions, and I combined several questions together, but this was one and we heard a lot. You know, what can we do to differentiate our business with all the noise that's out there and everyone doing the same thing to get in front of our customers? Man, I'll tell you, the number one thing that you can do is try to find that smallest viable audience, right? Don't try to boil the ocean, but really try to get in. And there's, great ways to target your customers today. LinkedIn and B2B is a wonderful way to target your customer. Inside of LinkedIn, you can find, you can target by role, you can target by geography, by company name. You could take your target account list and actually upload it into LinkedIn and target your customer that way. And so the key, of trying to cut through the noise is really get the right audience targeted first. And then the next thing you need to do is really get your messaging down. Because so many of your competitors, I see it all the time, they're focused on what I call Me Too content or we're great content, right? Me Too content is, hey, this is what we do, everybody does what we do, and it makes them just look like a commodity. The I'm great content is, hey, I'm beating my chest. We've been around for 100 years. My grandfather started this business and we've helped this many customers. Nobody cares about that stuff, right? We need to talk about how you're uniquely equipped to solve problems that your customer is living with. And so if you can do those two things, really hone in on that smallest viable audience and then talk about their problems, that's a great way to cut through the noise. Okay, so the next question. How can I convert more MQLs to SQLs? Well, obviously, I've got an opinion about that, right? We just spent the last hour together kind of talking about digital surrounds. And I just want to go back to that concept of, the popcorn popper. If you've got stuck leads or, your MQLs just aren't turning into SQLs, my guess is you've got to pour those suckers into the popcorn popper and heat them up with content and retargeting and messaging and digital selling and all those things that are going to keep you top of mind. And if you get that frequency up and really talk about, how you can help them, then you're going to see more of those MQLs pop out of the popcorn popper and be good quality leads for your sales reps. All right, the next question. Tips for trying digital marketing without wasting a bunch of time. Man, I'll tell you what, that's a big challenge, right? And there's, like I said earlier, there's so much information out there. All the information you need in order to be successful is available to you online today, right? The good news is it's there. The bad news is it's there, right? So what you have to do, my encouragement to you is maybe work with a company like Vendi. Maybe think about, a digital marketing roadmap as a way to short circuit or shortcut the process. Because literally, and I didn't talk about this a few minutes ago, but we get in and out of that digital marketing roadmap process in 3 meetings. And those meetings usually take we do 1 meeting a week. And so, gosh, in less than 3 weeks or a month, you could have what you need to really execute digital marketing for this year. Okay, next question. Do I have to spend money on ads? Sorry that I laughed. Do I have to spend money on ads to make digital marketing work? If so, how much should I spend? The answer is yes. You're going to have to spend money on digital marketing. If you don't have a digital marketing budget or an advertising budget, then you're really not going to be successful in digital marketing. I'm sorry. The reality is, though, there's lots of ways that you can do earned, which we talked about, and paid, and get those to work together. I mean, if you remember, I showed a case study about this webcast here where 45% of the registrations for this webcast we paid $0 for, right? But that doesn't happen by itself. If we weren't doing any advertising and we were just dependent on, connections that I have and getting people to show up for webcasts, number one, we would have missed out on 50% of our registrations. Number two, those that actually registered through that LinkedIn event may not have come because we didn't have the impressions that we needed. When it comes to how much should you spend, during the digital marketing roadmap process, we'll help you figure that out. That's one of the deliverables is a media plan. And so if you're going to go down that path, we'll help you figure that out. If you're going to not go down that path and try to figure this out on your own, a rule of thumb, and believe me, this is just a rule of thumb, I tell B2Bs, is expect to spend at least $100 a day. So if you're going to be in market, 30 days in a month, you need about a $3,000 budget. That would be like the minimum, right? So about $100 a day. If you don't have $3,000 a month, then I wouldn't really consider doing digital marketing because that's like table stakes, lowest possible amount you could possibly spend in digital and get some good momentum. Hope that helps. All right, so those are the questions that I kind of compiled. Again, I know that you've been asking Lauren and asking us questions throughout the whole webcast. Thanks again for hanging with me. It's 12:40. I went over about 10 minutes. We had a bet in the studio. The studio was telling me there's no way I'm going to get done by 12:30, and I said I would absolutely be done by 12:30, and I guess I owe them a steak dinner or something like that. We'll figure that out later. But please, if you're interested in having a one-on-one session with me, go to vendidigital.com/go. And I would go fast because whenever we do these webcasts, my calendar gets really full really fast. And that link on that page takes you directly to my calendar. So my guess is there's probably 10 or so appointments already there before this webcast is over. So go over there today, get yourself some time scheduled on my calendar. I look forward to learning more about your business and learning about what you're trying to do this year and to answer any questions that you have about our digital marketing roadmap. Thanks so much for attending, and hopefully you'll catch us in a webcast coming up in the near future. Take care, everybody.